This right here is the vision test from a hitter who batted over 400 in high school and went on to play in college baseball that I worked with. And this is the vision test from a hitter who struggled to hit over 200 as a senior. Now, obviously, vision isn't the only thing that determines whether somebody becomes a great hitter or not. But here's what most parents don't realize. Before your kid ever swings the bat, their brain has to answer a couple of questions. They got to know, where is the ball? How fast is it coming in? How far away is it? And where is my body in space relative to that ball? And if any of those inputs are off, the swing can actually look pretty broken, even when the mechanics aren't the real problem. Because here's the deal. Most hitting instruction starts at the very end of the chain. People look at the swing itself, they look at the hands, they look at the barrel, they look at the mechanics, but hitting is really an input problem first. The eyes and the brain have to gather information, then the body has to organize the movement, and then the swing happens. Now, when you look at these eye tests, here's the first thing that really jumps off the page when you look at them. Their eye alignment scores are very different. Now, eye alignment is basically the ability for both of the eyes to aim at the exact same target accurately. And what most people don't understand is somewhere around 70 to 90% of the population does not have their eyes lined up pointing in the same direction, which means when one eye tells the brain that an object is right here, the other eye doesn't necessarily think it's right there. It might be over here. So the brain is getting mixed information, literally, about where that object actually is. And this is one reason why some hitters are going to constantly miss onto the ball. But the visual information coming in just isn't giving them a chance to sync all that up. So it can mess with contact quality and barrel accuracy in ways that a lot of people never even think to test. Now, again, I am not saying eye alignment is the only reason somebody struggles to hit, but it's really interesting that the hitter who batted over 400 in high school and goes on to play in college had perfect eye alignment scores, while the hitter who struggled to hit in high school had an eye alignment score in the 13th percentile. So one hitter's brain was getting very clear information about where that ball actually was in space, but there's other layers to this. When you look at their depth perception scores, that 400 hitter, he came in at the 88th percentile in the country, the 200 hitter only in the 50th. And then another really interesting visual skill is something called convergence. And convergence is basically as an object gets closer to you, both eyes have to slightly go cross-eyed in order to keep tracking that object accurately, right? It's not a lot, but just a little bit. And this is a skill that's really common in elite contact hitters because their eyes continue to work really well at focusing and tracking the ball as it gets closer and going with that slight cross-eyes movement and using it. And when you see that the kid who only hit 200 is in the 40th percentile at that skill, things start to make sense about why he just wasn't able to hit when we try to focus on his mechanics. So when I started seeing these really stark differences as I was testing different hitters that I was working with, the first thing that came to my mind was, well, I wonder how my own kid scores on this stuff, right? And I also wondered, is this a trainable type of a thing? Because honestly, before all this, I just kind of thought vision was just, do you need glasses or not? But it turns out there's actually an entire field dedicated to athletic vision training, and it's a very different field than a normal optometrist, because a normal optometrist is mostly just looking at clarity of vision. Can you see clearly? Do you need glasses? But athletic vision looks at a visual performance skill perspective and looks at your eyes through that kind of a lens. So how efficiently do your eyes work together? How well do you track movement? How quickly does your brain process visual information? See depth of field? Stuff that actually matters in sports like baseball and softball. And the people in this field claim that it's really effective. Now, honestly, I didn't know if it would work or not, but I did decide to try it with my son. I was like, well, what's it going to hurt, right? And when we first tested him, here's a shot of the first visual test report that we got back. And you can see he actually scored pretty good in that Convergence already. He's in the 80th percentile of kids in the country, which makes sense because he's a catcher. But he only came in slightly above average in things like alignment and depth perception and below average in some of these other categories. But after putting him through 3 cycles of visual training, look at where his scores ended up. Every single category improved dramatically. His alignment scores jumped from 62nd percentile all the way to 100th. And when you can improve the hardware that a kid is operating with that's giving him all of his hitting information, it has a huge impact on their ability to handle higher level pitching, especially when it's velocity. And this is why I have such a problem with most hitting instruction being taught today, because everybody always thinks it's all about mechanics. They watch the mechanics on TV and they just try to immediately go teach kids how to do that. And I think mechanics matter too. You look at big leaguers and they're obviously moving incredibly well. We all want our kids to develop those elite types of swing patterns, but the way I think about mechanics is more like a table. So yeah, the tabletop matters, like let's call that the mechanics, but the table falls over if the legs underneath it aren't solid. And I think one of those very neglected legs of this table is absolutely the visual system. We spend almost no time on it as trainers and coaches and parents. But I also think there are some other huge pieces that are missing underneath mechanics that support this table that most people don't spend enough time talking about either. For example, rhythm. You look at cultures where rhythm is a huge part of everyday life, like the Dominican Republic, and they produce way higher rate per capita of baseball players into the big leagues than we do in America, even though we have way more people. Another one is proprioception, which is basically your ability for your body to have an awareness of where it's actually at in space down to like millimeters. And just like most people assume their eyes are kind of working correctly, but 90% aren't, most people assume their body awareness about where their hands actually are is accurate, but it's not accurate either. And a lot of athletes actually struggle really badly with proprioception. But the cool part is, just like vision, it is trainable. And then the last one is motor control, where there are categories of movement patterns that athletes need to be able to organize and control efficiently. And most athletes, they honestly struggle with these at just as high of a rate as they struggle with some of this visual stuff. And it's why I think there are hidden layers underneath hitting performance that most people are never talking about or working on. And they just keep trying to fix the mechanics. So what you see all over YouTube, a bunch of drill videos, not people lifting up the hood and seeing what's wrong with the engine. So over the next several weeks, I'm going to be going much deeper into all of these different categories because honestly, I think these are those missing pieces in modern player development that we have to spend more time talking about. And if you're into this kind of stuff, one, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. That's what we talk about. And if you want to see another example of a hidden problem that perfects performance, go check out this video right here, because in that video, we go over a movement screen that we use to identify some of the most common hidden motor control problems affecting hitter swings. And it really helps clean hitters up when you know what's wrong with their bodies.